Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am Robin Stamper, the Artistic Director for Opera Tampa, and I'm so very pleased to be here with Melissa Misener, our resident stage director, an amazing performer herself, and our artistic administrator. In March, we have the beautiful opera by Engelbert Humperdinck, no, not the famous pop singer from decades ago, a German composer around the same time as Wagner, who put together the fairy tale Hansel and Gretel, but actually eased it up and made it more family-friendly. You've heard of the story of Hansel and Gretel through the Grimm fairy tales, and all the Grimm fairy tales are actually quite grim. For instance, in the Grimm's fairy tales, it takes place in medieval Germany, where there was famine, and their stepmother, in this case of the Grimm fairy tale, and convinces the father to abandon the children in the woods. We're a lot more family-friendly than that. There are actually gingerbread children, whereas in the Grimm fairy tale, the witch simply cooks children at her whim. And it's really, really a lot more fun, very comic and very beautiful than the Grimm fairy tale. There's really, literally nothing grim about it. So, Melissa, you're our stage director.
That's right, that's right. So I would say the biggest difference between what the Brothers Grimm published in the 1800s and what Humperdinck did, like you say, it's not quite as
harsh.
Exactly, that's a great word, yeah. We have the addition of the Sandman, which is like another story that was published around the same time, another myth, who puts the children to sleep. And then we have also the addition of the Dew Fairy, who wakes them up in the morning. And those sweet little characters, and there's 14 angels that gather around the children as they sleep and sort of, invade their dreams. These are all sort of sweet things that Humperdinck added, and it adds a lot of texture to the story, so it's not just this sort of children get abandoned and then bewitched, right? Charmed by this witch and her edible home when they're so hungry. All those things are still present, but it is softened and sweetened a bit.
Well, and in music as well, because the opera was started by Humperdinck actually writing 4 little nursery tunes for a puppet show for his nieces, yes. And he uses these very simple tunes and actually transforms them through the course of the opera. At some point, quite Wagnerian in scope and in harmony. Because, of course, at that time in the late 19th century, everybody was influenced by Wagner. I mean, he was, especially all the German composers. Humperdinck was actually an assistant to Wagner and wrote set-changing music to Parsifal. So the influence is absolutely there in the music, taking a very small little nursery tune and blowing it up. You had mentioned the 14 angels. It sounds like Lohengrin when we get to that point of the opera.
And it's a big ballet. It's written as a big ballet,
yes.
Which is exciting because we often don't get to have all the art forms together, but this particular opera is a great opportunity to sort of add in the dance element and get really into the fantasy world, which is really fun.
Oh, absolutely, and we're going to be using some special effects, which you can speak to, besides the echoes throughout the theater, but Melissa has this great idea where...
So we're going to be adding some smells into the space to sort of add to that charm effect, that bewitching effect that the children sort of undergo. The witch sort of draws them in. And so I imagine that moment being sort of all sensory. So I thought it was important to add a little bit more sensation for the audience too.
And also, what's very special about this opera is, we have this beautiful Patel Conservatory, and who will be helping us with not only the dancers, but with the children's chorus. And Hansel and Gretel is the only opera, main stage, very popular opera, where there is no adult chorus. It's all children's chorus. and we will be using children from the Patel Conservatory to make up that chorus as well. You are stage directing our Hansel and Gretel. Is this your first time stage directing it?
Actually, no. My very first stage directing job, I guess you could say, of a full show, right? I had been stage directing concerts and little snippets, opera workshop type stuff. But the very first opera that I ever directed, beginning to end, was Hansel and Gretel at USF. And next year will be exactly 10 years ago. So yes, so it's hard to believe it's been 10 years since I've been stage directing, and it's hard to believe how many shows I have stage directed since then. But my very first project was Hansel and Gretel at USF, and incidentally, the Hansel who was studying there at USF as a mezzo-soprano, obviously, Sarah Coit, she now has gone on to this very illustrious career in opera. I mean, she's got quite the career, and she'll be coming back as sort of a homecoming to our stage to play Hansel. So it's sort of a homecoming for us, because she was just starting out in her career. Not really, she was still in school, and I was just starting out as a stage director. So so it'll be really fun for us to come back together and do this project together. And I think for the opera-going community to see sort of one of our homegrown opera singers do so well in her career and come back and join us for this project. We're pretty excited about it.
And it's purely coincidental.
Yes.
In casting, I did not seek out a person with these connections. You know, you go for the people who are the most talented, and she's certainly up there.
She certainly is.
As well as our witch.
Yes.
So, audience, if you remember our Cavalleria Rusticana and Gianni Schicchi, you will remember our Santuzza is a lady named Christina Major, who I know quite well. Well, she's so funny. You can go on YouTube and see her singing opera as she's going down water slides. And she makes the most brilliant comic YouTube videos of all sorts of different commentary. Very, very funny lady, and certainly will be a magnificent witch between the voice and the comedy.
She will.
I have another question, though, as stage director.
All right.
So Hansel and Gretel was actually written in German, and Engelbert Humperdinck. We do not perform Hansel and Gretel in German. And incidentally, all of our operas have the titles above them. Even if we're doing something in English, you always have the super titles. But we will be doing Hansel and Gretel in English. Can you speak to our translation?
So our translation is sort of a mishmash of existing translations with sort of my opinion peppered in. So it's going to follow the same sort of format that it does in German, where like a lot of the endings of the phrases rhyme. That's a very stylized thing that Humperdinck has in the opera, and so we want to follow along with that style, but make it accessible to our own audience, both language-wise and just context. You know, understanding time and space. Our now reality, you know, has a different language even than the translation of the Humperdinck from whenever it was published. So it's sort of a mixed bag, let's say, but I'm going to find the most entertaining text for our show.
Well, one of the pieces of good news is that German has similar risings and fallings in the languages, as opposed to French, for instance.
Which is why we can do it in English, because it is so sort of similar in syntax.
Syntax, and also, you know, how the language rises and falls.
That's right. So as if it was in Italian, we would be in a mess. Well, yeah, for sure.
French is even worse.
Yeah, French is even worse.
But finding rhymes that actually mean something at least reasonably similar.
Right. Yes.
You know, that's a challenge. It's better you than me, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I'm excited because we have so many people in our cast that are our local Tampa Bay Area singers.
Oh yeah.
We have
absolutely.
We have several. So actually, the Gretel from that original production that I did in 2014 at USF is actually going to be our Dew Fairy. That's Vanessa Rodriguez, who many people remember her because she's so wonderful and talented in our area. And then, of course, Jordan Blair, who was our Ruth in Pirates of Penzance, and she played in Jenny Skiki as Nella.
Right. She was in Norma, actually.
She was in Norma as Clotilda,
yeah.
That's right, and she did a couple of different parts in Tales of Hoffman as well.
Yeah, she was the mother in that too.
She was the mother in that, and she was the mother. I mean, we've used her so many times because we just love her so much.
Mothers, yes.
And it's been so nice and exciting to watch her develop into the dynamite performer that she is. It feels so great.
And Sean.
And Sean Stork, who was our modern Major General in Pirates of Penzance and was also in Johnny Skiki in that wonderful ensemble. Yes, and we love using him because he's such a great asset. And I love that we can sort of fish in our own pond here in the Tampa Bay area, that we have so many wonderful singers that are of the caliber that we need them to be for the operas.
Well, it's also good for our artistic community to be employing local singers when appropriate. We've had very great success doing that, and I think it's good for the community, for the local singers to know they will be considered and cast appropriately.
There's work for you here. You don't have to move somewhere else to
get
sing.
work in your hometown.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's really exciting. So we have a cast chock full of local singers, and that's just dynamite.
We're also very excited to be using the Florida Orchestra, and I think of that with Hansel and Gretel a lot. Well, because of the orchestration is so rich. Maestro Francis is conducting our Don Giovanni, and we have an Israeli conductor, Noam Aviel. The first time Opera Tampa has hired a female conductor to conduct Hansel and Gretel, and yours truly is conducting La Traviata. When we were speaking of the music of Hansel and Gretel, I mentioned that the opera actually began with 4 little nursery tunes that Humperdinck composed for his niece's little puppet show. Well, one of those tunes is the prayer that you hear Hansel and Gretel singing in the forest as they fall asleep. I also spoke about how Humperdinck was massively influenced, as all composers were in the late 19th century, by Richard Wagner. So you can hear now this lovely little simple tune slowly evolve into something that's a little bit more harmonically and orchestrally expansive. Music starts out very simply. Becomes a little bit more interesting harmonically. Listen to what happens here. That crescendo into a piano dynamic is very emblematic of Wagner and Richard Strauss. The tune gets a little more interesting. That cello line. Now we evolve into the dream sequence in the 14 Angels ballet as the children fall asleep. The little magic. Now we're in a different world entirely. almost Lohengrin, a Wagner opera. Etc. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me here. You are a wealth of knowledge and personality, and it's always a pleasure doing discussions like this with you. Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for being with us. We hope our tickets are on sale, by the way. Right now, you can find them at operatampa.org, and we hope to see all of you at the opera.